Hello and welcome to the Paul Green Comedy PaulCast. And oh, is it a special edition of all special editions with a very special guest on the very special edition. This is Elizabeth Pitt, everybody. And oh my gosh, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
I am so thrilled. So give a little bit of backstory of mine and Elizabeth's relationship. So she was the vice president of the company that I used to work at.
Actually, the chief customer officer.
Oh. See, I knew you were a big deal.
I was a very big deal.
C-suite. Yeah. I thought vice president was still C-suite. Was that not elaborate enough?
No, it's fine. It's just, as a woman, I'm stepping into really owning my accomplishments.
Yeah.
So there you go.
I love
that correction so that I can,
So right off the bat, I'm already wrong. Very good. So, Elizabeth was absolutely instrumental in helping me accomplish my dreams and moving to Los Angeles. And she is a dreamer herself. She and I actually started a podcast and did a couple episodes. We didn't quite get around to releasing it about dreaming. And so she is absolutely incredible. And I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you.
So why don't you, I'll just let you just talk about yourself and how amazing you are for a little bit.
Okay, if I must. So it's interesting, right? Because as you start to dream and create and things in your life do start to turn out amazing, if they're authentic, it's not because there's a lot of ego around that and you want to talk up your amazingness, but it's just like, it's interesting. If you give yourself permission to dream, some amazing things start to happen. And that has been my experience. You and I met at Infusionsoft, which was one of the most empowering cultures that I'd ever worked in, because they were so explicit about believing in people and their dreams.
Sure.
And so, I've got just a long and windy history. I spent quite a fair amount of time in software. I went to fancy University of Chicago to get my MBA. I thought I was, I actually really enjoyed the school, but I thought I needed to get lots of credentials. That was kind of my strategy in my 30s. And then I worked at a strategy consulting firm called McKinsey & Company, which is working with the, top tier multi-billion-dollar companies on their hardest business problems, the ones that the internal folks might be having trouble solving,
Sure.
Or that they need an outside expert to come in with a very clear perspective. Great business acumen perspective was really wonderful. But truly those experiences where you're just working all those crazy hours. I was in the thick of it. It's pretty cool. I got to work in Chicago and be in the fancy office building, and I was like, ooh, this is cool. I really made it. But at the end of the day, there was something a little bit more about, I'm doing this because I had an external agenda about accomplishment. So I always wanted to go to the elite schools. University of Chicago was the #1 business school, so I wanted to go there. McKinsey was the #1 strategy consulting firm, so I wanted to be there. And what an amazing muscle to have to be able to put my energy towards achieving in that way. But there's an element missing called, what do I want? What do I want to accomplish in my life? So that's the beginning of dreaming, is achieving, maybe based on someone else's thoughts about what that should or could look like, what success could look like. And then getting into about 30 couple and saying, oh, wait a second, I thought there was going to be a parade for me when I graduated, top 4% of my class at the, top business school in the country. And not really, there was no parade. I missed not having a parade. I thought I really deserved a parade.
I feel you do.
But I did have my parents come into town for my business school graduation, my divorced parents, and then have a big fight. So that was almost a parade. But anyway,
a different type of parade,
parade, kind of thing. So it was really interesting. So then after McKinsey, I got into software and I worked for Intuit, the makers of QuickBooks and TurboTax and
Sure.
Quicken. And that was an amazingly run company. I worked in San Diego in their tax division, making taxes for small business owners. So I fell in love with the small business owner entrepreneur customer because I got to go to their offices and interview them and get a sense for what a day in their life was like. And it was like nothing I'd ever seen. They really had an unstructured day. They were structuring their own day, from, solopreneurs to people who had offices of 3 or 4 people, busy as all get out. And at the end of the day, they needed to do their taxes.
Right.
And they weren't sure that spending, $3,500 for those taxes made sense for their business size. So we created a software that could allow them to do it. And Intuit was very much, the customer first. And I got to really be belly to belly with customers. They would use the software. I was product manager of that software. And I got my first taste of really connecting with people as something that had to be part of my purpose, had to be part of my dream. It's like business without that connection wasn't fulfilling. So I don't think I was in like the free dreaming stage at this point. I was adjusting from the agenda others had for me of accomplishment, and then something that's like, oh, this is going to make it a little juicier for me if I can actually connect with the person that I'm serving in the work that I do. This could get interesting.
Yeah.
So then I had a turn where I bought a business that was in a field that was really up and coming, elder care and internet together. And I thought, wow, I'll be a captain of industry because I've got two big trends together. Turned out that I wasn't super passionate and I didn't really know that much about elder care.
Sure.
I liked online and software, but then things got hard. Business mistakes get made when you're a new entrepreneur. And so that business did not do what I thought it would do. And I realized you have to have a real passion and commitment to see through the twists and turns if you're going to dream, right? Like if without passion for your dream, when it gets hard, you're not going to persist, right? It has to get you where you live. So, I had a business that didn't get me where I lived. And along the way, met the folks at where you and I met. And that was the first time where I had leaders who were very versed in dreaming. I mean, really believed in the creative force that each one of us has as our birthright. There's a great creator and we're his, progeny that we could really create because we say so. Very interesting and very different from the achiever mindset where the achiever's like, find the creator and then do really great work with and for them. And then they might pay you a lot. It wasn't like, give yourself permission to create. And I think in the achiever world, there's also there's the creators and then there's like the fulfiller, manager, operators who are then by definition not creative, which is interesting.
Let's make sure we don't get too out of
the mic. Or you got to hear the too out of it because it's like right there. I'm like, not used to always talking. Then it's not, no one's going to hear me.
Yeah, we have to say the whole thing again. Just kidding. You're fine.
Okay. All right. Well, you'll just, edit it out with some AI voice.
Hello.
I am.
And I am the vice president. I'm not the vice president. I'm the chief.
Exactly. So anyway, back to dreaming.
Yes,
You told me to talk a little bit about myself. I talked a lot about myself, but
I love all this.
I found myself in a culture that gave every human being in that corporate culture the permission to dream.
Right.
And that is, and there are other companies like Zappos who do that. I mean, it is not without precedent or without, peers in that approach. But I certainly didn't feel that at McKinsey. I really wasn't. That wasn't the conversation at Intuit. Those are large, multi-billion-dollar like corporations. There was a lot of leadership development, so that there was a lot of investment in personal development. But not so much of an emphasis of like, if you had a white sheet of paper, what would you actually dream up? And that's where you and I met. You were doing some very interesting dreaming of your own around going into comedy and acting and, understanding you had a talent, but not really having had permission to just unleash yourself and go into the abyss and trust that the net would appear.
Right.
And that it was just interesting. So maybe then talk about, our meeting, how, your dream. I mean, because I think there's an alchemy, there's some principles to dreaming, but it really started with the courage that you had to declare something. And then, some supporters kind of grew up and around you.
Yeah. And I'll tell you the courage was bare minimal. It was really from the encouragement of two key individuals, Dan Rouse, who I had on here a couple of weeks ago, who was my dream manager, and then Elizabeth Pitt. So ultimately, I sat down with Dan and he just said, what's that thing that you really want that you're so afraid to even say out loud because you just don't even think it's possible? And without even thinking about it, it said, I want to be on a sitcom. And I had never said that out loud in my entire life. But I have spent my entire life watching Saturday Night Live and watching Seinfeld and watching Big Bang Theory and watching The Office and seeing these character actors and going like, that's really what I want.
I could totally do that. Yeah.
Yeah. And having no idea how that would even happen for me or, that's those big breaks that those other people get. But that's not in I don't get that.
Right.
Life doesn't work out for me was really my mindset.
Interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah. So, we can go to my whole psychology, but, so what Dan ultimately did was just say, well, what would it take for that to happen? I said, well, I would need to move to LA. Well, what would it take for you to move to LA? And I'd be like, well, I want a job because I'm not going to go out there and I don't have any savings. Like I'm not in any sort of financial position to go like just out there and try to
Wing
make
it.
it,
Yeah.
wing it. And I just said, I could totally do this infusion shop job remotely. I totally, like, I love being in the office, but like, I know I don't need to be here. So then the next question for Dan was, well, what would it take for this to go to remotely, And so it was just like asking, well, what's the next logical question? What's the next thing we need to figure out? And ultimately how you and I met was, it was so random how it all happened, or divinely orchestrated.
Serendipitous, yes.
Whatever your belief system around that is. But I just said, well, they don't have a remote department here. I've only been working here not even 6 months. And
I didn't realize that.
I was really new. So like, I haven't really developed any street cred. You know what I mean? Like, I haven't really earned the right to be like, hey guys, I've scratched your back. Now it's my turn. You know what I mean? Like,
Totally.
I didn't really feel like I had that sort of entitlement to like ask a big ask.
Sure.
And so there was no remote department. And then Dan asked, well, what about like working for one of our partners? I'm like, well, that would be great. He goes, I know lots of our partners in California. I said, that's great. But Infusionsoft has a non-compete that you can't go work for a partner for at least 6 months from quitting. I'm like, and I don't have 6 months of reserve. And he just goes, well, this is all he said. He said, why don't you email the legal department and just clarify that that's the policy? And he goes, and I don't remember who the person was. Here's the legal department, whoever's in charge, and here's their email.
Tiana, maybe. Yeah.
So I just emailed Tiana, hey, Tiana, I have this dream. And I led with that. Because Infusionsoft's motto was, we believe in people and their dreams. At least at the time.
One of their values.
One of their core values.
Yeah.
So I kept using that. It's like, this is what you guys purport to believe.
Yeah.
To what extent do you actually believe it, or are you doing it lip service?
Right.
And so I had to say, I have this dream of moving to LA. I would love to work for Infusionsoft, but there's not a remote position. So the next step would be to stay in the ecosystem. Like, I'm not trying to screw you guys out of your investment. I'm just trying to see how we can make this work in a way that is very transparent. I'm not trying to do anything underhand and anything shifty, right? So I get an email back from legal saying, yeah, unfortunately, that would be in place, that 6-month hold. And I got that email back. And this was the level of my belief in myself. I went, okay, dream over.
Right.
Like, I tried this thing, first barrier, and I didn't have that in me of like, okay, what's next? Okay, that was one no. I still need to go get 1,000 more no's before. Like, I was shut down. And I just went, okay, well, nice try. I guess I'll just work here and not go for it. Like, that's really where I'm at that time.
Yes.
So I literally, like, I was done. Like, I gave it a shot. I sent one email. That was the extent.
So their persistence, yeah.
Yeah, that was the extent of my persistence to pursue this dream. Unbeknownst to me, legal had forwarded that email not to a vice president, no, to the chief person's operator. Did I say it right this time? Chief customer officer, CCO, Elizabeth Pitt. So I get an email from Elizabeth, and I hadn't met you. I knew of you. And
you knew of me.
I knew of you. I mean, I knew that. I mean, you might as well have been God for, like, you're like,
yeah,
you're a big deal. You know what I mean? Like, you're the boss. You know what I mean? You're adjacent to the boss of all bosses. You know what I mean? Like, and in my little, like, limited, scarce,
so fascinating,
no courage mindset, I'm going, I'm fired. I literally thought when I saw who it was, and like the first sentence was like, hey, Paul, this Elizabeth, legal forwarded me your email. And I thought I was fired. I thought like I had done, legal I didn't ask him, what? No, what?
Okay, wait. I have to stop for just 1 second because you've been dreaming for a minute now. How often does the next perfect step in your dream feel like game over, like a bad piece of information? Like, it starts off feeling like a bad surprise, but in retrospect, it's one of the best things that could happen. So you open this email, felt like a real bad surprise, and it actually wasn't. So anyway, I just was thinking a parallel of when you actually start then free dreaming and understanding that you are creating something and there's no set path.
Yeah.
Something that seems like a shut door or an issue is actually sometimes the beginning of the thing.
Yeah.
So, and you don't know because you've never done this dream before. It's not predictable. So it's just interesting to notice the backdrop of, well, of course it's bad news. By the way, most of us receive information like, of course it's bad news.
Yeah.
You know, I guess maybe the Depression era people taught us to think that way. I don't really know. But I know that bias for like, it's got to be a bad surprise. I'm surprised Elizabeth is emailing me. Must be a bad surprise.
Yeah. And I had mentioned this earlier. It's like, I had an expectation that life doesn't go well.
Right.
Like, that's what I expected. Like, it never turns out.
It's interesting.
You never get the love you want. You never get the job you want. You never get the dreams you want. It's always fail, 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 and then die. Like, that was what was, however it was installed in me. That was the software program that was running.
Interesting. And that you didn't live on the, you know, anyone who's met you wouldn't have said that about you at the time. It just takes uncovering. That's a limiting belief that was in there. But you're not like leading with that when you talk to people.
Oh, no.
But when you really press and you're like, well, why would I think that? It's like, oh, I've got a talk track. You know, like you think about a laugh track. Well, inside of our head is a talk track. So like, you're going to fail, you're going to fail, you're going to be a fail. Or one of my friends and I discovered we had like, don't be broke, don't be single, don't be fat. That was like, you know, those were the 3 cardinal rules. Don't be broke, don't be single, don't be fat.
Wow.
And those 3 things are running like, don't be broke, so don't quit your job. Don't be single, so you know you must be in a relationship. Don't be broke, never quit. You know or don't be fat, right? You got to be fit. Like you know, it's awful to put on weight or not look your best or what have you. Think of all the limits that was putting on. So things don't work out for me. It's fail, fail, fail. Then you die. There's limits there. You don't even know it's there until you actually start trying to go somewhere.
Yeah.
And only then, I mean, of course we know the dreams manifest, and we have some more about that. But even if they didn't, what you get to uncover about what's limiting you would be worth it just to have a cockamamie dream.
Right.
What the cockamamie dream unlocks, you know, when people are like, well, did the dream happen? You know, sometimes you shift your dream. Sometimes if that happens, it's legit. It's not giving up.
Right.
But it's like what you get unlocked in the face of an obstacle about what limits you is worth the dreaming, regardless of what happens with the dream.
Right.
P.S. The good news is, you know, 9 times out of 10, it actually manifests and maybe in a just different way.
Do you think it's that high?
I do.
You think it's 90% of dreams come true?
I do. Wow. Yeah. Because why would they not come true? What's the only reason they wouldn't come true?
I don't know.
You quit. Because if you keep on going after something, you're the smartest person in the room about that thing. An obsession pays out. You just don't know when.
Right. Yeah.
I do think it's that high. Or you say, genuinely, I learned a lot. I was obsessed for a decade. Like I studied wine and I was a certified sommelier. And I thought I was going to have like an industry in wine and know a lot about wines. And, you know, I really was going down that path. And then I realized people in that industry drink a lot. And I mean, you know, because I was interested. Well, but I mean, for me, it kind of was because I was like, it's so intellectual, like the, you know, where it's grown and how the grapes are. I mean, I thought it was just this wonderful intellectual exploration. Just a little bit about that industry. It attracts people who like really do drink kind of what. And then I was like, oh, I like the intellectual piece, but I don't know that piece would, you know, is as exciting now that I kind of really see that.
Right.
You know, and being around alcohol all day long, because I like it. It's wonderful for taste, but I could see that might not be commensurate with some of my other goals for health and for, you know, just, I guess, lucidity.
Sure.
Whatever it was. But so it's interesting, you know, to have a real opted quit, a real like informed quit.
Yeah.
Is not the death of a dream at all.
Yeah. And it's not really a quit. It's a pivot. It's a, you know, the dream is going elsewhere now, which is totally acceptable. Totally acceptable.
That's exactly right. And then that level of mastery I get to keep. You know, I mean, it was a very hard thing to learn to be able to master at the level that I did. And I get to totally keep it. And it's a fun party trip.
Yeah.
People put a wine in front of me and they're like, can you tell me what that is? You know, most of the time I can.
Yeah.
And that's part of what I get to keep. But so what, you know what I'm saying? Like, but who I had to be, you know, what happens as the pursuit of the dream, you know, as you're pursuing the dream. I mean, even when I was going into the wine industry, I'm like, all these people who know so much more than me. I mean, I'm 30 and I just am starting this, and like people have been doing this for decades, and, you know, all the things they know, and oh my gosh, it seemed insurmountable. And so then I had to come into my own limits about, you know, how much education do you need before you just go for it? Things of that nature.
Sure.
So just saying the boldness to declare a dream will uncover those little gremlins and talk tracks in your head, regardless of the outcome. And the bonus is the outcomes almost always pretty rich as well, as long as you persist and the gremlins don't win.
Yeah. Yeah.
So back to you.
Well, it's interesting, and you can understand why when I hear 90%,
You're like, what?
how that is still at friction with my mindset, which is like,
Sure.
no, only a very few select. There's only like one. You only get one Taylor Swift, and every other singer-songwriter doesn't get to be, Taylor Swift. Or there's one Patrick Mahomes who wins all of the Super Bowls, and all the 31 other wannabe quarterbacks don't get to win the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
so I started thinking about like,
and those are different because I think that in sports, there is some physicality that's really required.
sure,
In music, there's probably some vocal talent, although not universally. There are some, vocalists that I'm like, oh, yeah, but who have been very persistent. I think it's easier to stay in love with your dream when you have measured success early.
Sure.
That's it. And, and there's some, like, I don't know if we'll get to this, but my Mr. Yummy, my love of my life.
oh, heck yeah, we're going to get to that.
I married him at 45. And I was thinking, he's never coming.
Sure.
I'm going to die a woman with a lot of good friends without a man in my life. I am not kidding you.
Right.
That was my limiting belief. Like, it doesn't get to happen for me.
Right.
And the odds of that are, the optics of having a person seem a lot easier. Half the people in the world are men. Like, your odds seem better than, let's say, fame or, being a successful, famous, whatever. But even in my own mind, I'm like, I'm going to resign myself that I'm just too unique of a blend and I'm not going to get to have true love.
Right.
That's an interesting one. So, and then 45, I looked back and said, he wasn't available until he was. So it took this long because that's when the person I was conjuring up became available for me to love.
Yeah.
So,
okay. Yes. Amazing. And let's go back to the history because that was a fun tangent, which every time we talk,
it's tangential. It's one after the other.
Sometimes I think we've had like 4-hour conversations.
Yes.
Which is why I was like, we got to just record this. So, all right. So thank you for that. So let's go back to the email. So I get the email from Elizabeth Pitt and I'm thinking, I'm fired. I have, legals talking to like people know what I'm up to and
you're exposed.
I'm exposed. And the email was the complete opposite. The email was, I just got your email from legal about you wanting to work remotely for us. And I really feel that we need those programs or something along those lines. And, can't make any promises, but we're looking into it.
And this was pre-COVID where we're working remotely was like, brr, brr, brr.
Yeah. So context, this would have been 2015, early 2015. And then over the next weeks, months, just more and more momentum started generating behind this idea of working remotely. And, and then I really started to have to change my mindset of like, wow, there's actually people out there who give a shit. And there's actually people who mean what they say. And there's actually people who care about me, even they don't really know me, but they know that I'm in their tribe. And they have this purpose and these beliefs, these core values, and they stand behind them. And, to fast forward, next thing I know, you, Amanda Souders, Chris Brown, Brett Crandall, I think it was those four. I'm just working away on my desk, and you all surrounded my desk, and you're like, do it. You can go work remote. Oh, I still get chills. And I'm just going like, something in my life has like amazing. It's just happened.
Yeah.
Like this huge course adjustment has,
right.
And, and I'm just going like, wow, I have to start kind of believing in myself and in people and in my dreams. And then this whole other, I could talk about how many alignments and synchronicities, even to the timing of where I ended up living. And all of this stuff was like so synchronistic. Within a couple of hours of like needing something to line up and open up, I'll tell the story real quick. So so one of the things Dan said was like, well, what are some of the limiting beliefs you have about moving to LA? Oh, it's too expensive. Rent's expensive. Have you ever looked at how expensive it is? Oh, no. He's like, well, why don't you just do some research? Just start Googling what do apartments cost? What do rooms cost?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then once I went and did that, I started finding places. oh, that's not so bad.
Right.
Oh, I could make that work.
Yeah.
And at the time, I found this website where it was a townhome that had 3 bedrooms, and they had a room for rent in it that was very reasonable. I'm going, wait, is this real?
Right.
So I actually emailed the guy. Now, this was before the email. This was before anything. This was just me. How much would it cost for me to get a box to live in LA? And so I emailed the guy, and he emails right back. He's like, oh, hey, we just rented that, but I'll keep you in mind. Like, I'll keep your phone number because it's kind of a bachelor pad. We have people coming and going all the time. I was like, great. Didn't think anything. That was like February. I didn't think anything of it. So now I've gotten the green light. I have a job that will let me work in a different state so I can have some income while I get grounded and try to figure life out. And at that same time, another buddy of mine had decided to move to LA. So I'm like out in LA,
Right.
and we're looking for apartments. We find an apartment. We start going through the qualification process, and I had committed to move out that weekend. So I'm kind of in crunch time. It gets time to sign the paperwork, and my buddy goes, I'm not comfortable signing a lease. I'm actually not sure now. I mean, his plans just sort of changed. Like his long-term commitment to this change. He's like, are you comfortable just signing the lease yourself? And it was like, no, because the apartment is like, I needed to rely on his income to make it work.
Yeah.
So I had to just call the landlord and, or the property manager and be like, I'm sorry, I don't think I can do this. My buddy's backing out. And again, it was like obstacle devastation. That was like my MO. Like I hadn't developed that muscle of like, oh, problem. Next step. And I distinctly remember we were at a coffee shop. This will give you an idea of my state of mind at the time. He pretty much tells me that at this coffee shop. And I'm like, okay, I go to the bathroom. I go in the bathroom stall and I like curl up in the corner of the bathroom stall and cry, like devastated. Like, what the hell am I going to do now? 2 hours later, I get an email from that dude from 6-7 months before. Hey, Paul, I have a place opening up. Are you still looking to move to LA? Yes. He's like, when are you looking to move? This weekend. When is it going to be available? He said, the guy's moving out Friday. I'm like, I'm moving in Saturday. He's like, well, you gotta, you have to go through qual. I'm just like, yeah, I know. Can I come by and see tomorrow? But it was like, no, this is already the place. You know what I mean? Went by, saw the next day, did the thing, did the application. I knew I was going to get approved. And literally, their dude moved out on Friday. I had a U-Haul, and I moved in Saturday. My last day actually was that Friday. You may remember this. We had a company meeting, and they had me host the company meeting.
I remember this. Yep.
And I got to tell everybody in front of 600 people, like, everybody, I'm moving to LA tomorrow. And I got to thank everybody and thank you and thank Brad and everybody who had such a strong influence on that. And here we are, almost 10 years later.
Isn't that crazy?
Oh,
that was 9 years ago. That's crazy.
And you and I have, maintained a friendship over the years, and it still kind of blows my mind because I still have a hard time letting go of, you're the boss. You know what I mean?
I do. Yeah.
And like, not just the boss, but like the boss. You know what I mean?
Right.
And, and I still remember, you had called me about a year and a half ago, with that relationship that I was in that didn't work out, and you didn't even know it hadn't worked out.
Yeah, that's true.
You had just called me.
Yeah.
Just like, what's going on? And all of a sudden we have this long heart-to-heart.
Yeah.
And now we're like hanging out all the time and going to comedy shows and going to dinner. And so it's just remarkable, the people who will come into your life who just support you and love you.
And I think you're the boss too. I kind of think you're the boss.
I'm only a vice president, so I am not C-suite material.
True. You're striving. I give you that.
So enough about me. So let's get now to the dream of all dreams that we all love to talk about, because it's a love story. Everybody loves a love story. So let's talk about the Mr. Yummy story.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Well, it's so interesting, right? Because you're talking about the email back from me where I'm like, yeah, I totally think we need a remote department, and that what that unleashed. And you can see how I was unleashing my own dreams in terms of supporting someone else's, because like we don't do remote here, but I didn't think that was the right answer. So I was looking for a case a person an instance
Right.
to test. Can we be successful? Can someone hit all their metrics? Is if it's the right type of person, can this work? And I think through COVID and stuff, we do realize that it does work. But like that was me kind of being in a dreamy place, because Infusionsoft was a dreamy place. Then we had, I wanted to empower lots of people. I wanted to cast the net wider for talent, the things I wanted. So we were a match too.
Right.
So it wasn't a charity.
Yeah.
That's the interesting part of it.
Yeah.
Is it was something super aligned to my values, and Amanda's and Chris Brown's and Brent Crandall's. All of us had shared, being part of someone else's dreams, and the miracle of dreaming takes our breath away. So there's a win that way. But I also had, some thoughts about empowering other amazing people, or being able to open the applicant pool wider. And I was like, well, who's more motivated than Paul to make this work? Because he wants to do really well at his remote work so that he can pursue his dream. I mean, that was a really interesting win-win. And so, I myself was in a season, really. I mean, because it's pretty awesome being, in the C-suite. You are given a lot more permission to put your handprints on the creating. I mean, and I think that's one of the challenges in corporate companies like Infusionsoft, who are encouraging people to dream, but it's like, but you can't have 600 people with their handprints totally on everything, or else it's chaotic,
Right.
So at what level are you actually shaping the company's future? But I was feeling personally pretty empowered. We got to go meet with Jim Collins, Good to Great, Built to Last, in his lab in Boulder, Colorado. He was talking about the company we were creating, and we talked about dreaming a lot. And I had actually gotten a coaching credential, so I was coaching other people in that very intimate, vulnerable space where they're saying things like, you know what, I really want to be on a sitcom, or I would really love to work in this industry, but I don't know how to break in, so I was getting more vulnerable with people. And one of the things I got really face-to-face with, after putting it on chill for a minute, was an intimate partner in my life. When I did a perfect day visualization, when I envisioned my life, as a little bit of a backdrop, I was married in my 30s. That marriage, was not super successful. Then I was engaged, and I was just like, maybe I'm trying to balance career and, love, and maybe you got to make more space for a relationship, which some coaching I got. As busy as you are, where's another person going to fit? Great question. But then there's always that niggling, maybe I'm not that lovable.
Ooh.
I talk a lot, I'm a little curvier than might be the, standard, package someone would order up. I mean, I have a voracious intellectual appetite that can be exhausting. I mean, people have described me as exhausting to them, and that's not a fun thing to hear by yourself. You're like, I'm sorry that I just have a very active-minded, or whatever, I'm very intense.
Well, I will state I have never grown tired of Elizabeth Pitt.
I know, 4 hours on the phone that we can spend talking about this stuff.
Yeah.
It's really mind-numbing, actually. You know anything, because we don't even notice.
Right.
I'm like,
What?
It's midnight.
Was it? Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Talk to you tomorrow.
Yeah.
I mean, I had to work. So anyway, so I'd had my own heartburn. So I said, I'm going to do what I know I'm good at, which is lead and dream at Infusionsoft. And so I kind of shut off the funnel, if you will. I was just not really doing I'm looking for a partner thing. But then I did do a perfect day visualization, which is another thing you can do in dreaming. Astro project yourself forward 5-10 years, and what does your life look like? And it was very clear in that I had a delicious, intimate, marital partner, or at least,
I love how you describe that too. Delicious, Mr.
So
Yummy. You can just taste the succulence of the relationship.
It was succulent. So because we're talking about dreaming, I did a 14-minute mind movie. So I wrote a script about my perfect day, and then I set it to images and, what have you. I mean, I animated it to images that represented my words. And so it started off, I wake up without the help of an alarm. That was big. I just wake up naturally. I'm not
love when I don't have to set an alarm clock.
I wake up naturally without the help of an alarm, right? And there I am, and I'm just, stretching, and I'm getting ready to go on my workout, because I'm a triathlete. I did triathlete for a while. That ended up not being a dream. But, and I lived right on the beach in the Caribbean, and I look over, and there is my beautiful man. And I just look at him, and I'm like, yes. He is sumptuous and wonderful and smart. And I'm having my coffee, and I'm looking out at the beach, and I'm like, I love our life. It is just amazing. I can't believe all of this abundance, and it's like, you're layering it on in these dreams, but it's not real. It's completely real, totally legit. I could feel it in my bones that there's somebody there with me. And then I didn't have that somebody. And not like it was missing. It was just like, I think I probably want to do something about that. Like, I think I want to, it's time, because I'd spent 3 or 4 years leading at Infusionsoft, quieting down the dating channel, just spending time with myself, just enjoying who I was. I had amazing people I met at Infusionsoft who were super grateful for my contribution in terms of the coaching, the patience, the loving, the believing that I was capable of. I think I fell in love more with myself for a minute, which is so critical if you're going to invite someone else to come on in there and love you. Got to deal with some of your stuff. So I did reach a point where I was like, okay, I don't know. It's feeling like time. So I had a really good girlfriend of mine, and she kind of gets angel promptings, and like angel messages. And she's like, oh, they're telling me we should have some fun here. She's like, and we had been talking about, I don't want to do online again because I don't like online. It feels really like you have to say no to people who are really nice. I don't like all of the having to reject or being rejected. And it's like, so all it's transactional. I don't know. I was like, my Mr. Yummy is out in the world doing interesting stuff in interesting locations throughout the world, like, and doing, I don't know, crazy cockamamie things like, I don't know, race car driving or, going to building dedications or charitable events. But he's a man of the world, was my thinking. So we were talking about, should I just go on trips and be around people that might be interesting versus like the only reason you're on a dating site is because you want to date.
Right.
I kind of wanted to bump into someone. Like, that's how I was thinking. Look, we'll bump in. Our eyes will lock across
Carrying the books down the high school locker room,
totally.
and you drop them. Oh, sorry. Oh, let me get those from you. Oh, hi.
As you say it,
I knew. I knew at the school. I just transferred from Brunswick.
Well, I mean, I had my meet cute in my own mind.
Yeah.
And my meet cute wasn't some email like, your profile looks interesting. Really.
Right.
Meet cute in my mind. It was not my meet cute. So anyway, she encouraged me to write down 24 different locations I wanted to travel to, 24 months, each month twice, and 24 different things I wanted to do. So places I wanted to go, things I wanted to do, and months each month. I picked 10. And that became the Mr. Yummy plan. And so then I said, okay, next year, this was in 2016, I'm going to take these trips. The first one was in February. It was like February, March, May, June, September. I mean, we had these 10 trips. Some of them ended up being short, some of them long. But I would invite a girlfriend of mine to come with, and we would just go and be out and about. So my sister was on the first trip. We started off in Napa and San Francisco. And then the friend that I was telling you about, we went to Seattle, and she was on that trip with me. And I went with another trip to St. Martin, and I'm, doing these trips. And I went to Dublin and Paris with another friend of mine, and it was, Dublin is super fun. The people there are super fun.
Yeah.
And along the way, we're meeting interesting people, but some of them were foreign. So how would that work out? But that was, it's okay.
Yeah.
There's a lot of just being foreign that could be super interesting. So I'm going through this plan, but then at work, we kind of started having a little bit of business challenge. I was in charge of customer success and retention. Our retention was kind of like our churn rate was creeping up. Our retention was creeping down. Things were getting a little hot in the kitchen. And I knew that I was going to have to give that some serious attention. And in so doing, yet again, I'd be choosing work over, my love life. I would be not making space for my love life. And that's the coach that's telling you about, Steve Hardison. He's the one who said, as busy as you are, where's Mr. Yummy going to fit? Like,
right.
That it's a non sequitur. It doesn't work. So I made the really hard choice to go in and tell the founders, Clayton and Scott, that as much as I loved working at Infusionsoft, and I truly did, and the team that I was on, I truly did, that I needed to complete this year of Mr. Yummy. So my, Mr. Yummy plan was beckoning to be completed. So this was right about June, July. And so Clay went to the executive team and said, well, Elizabeth's decided to quit. She needs to do this Mr. Yummy plan. Her intimate true love, her 50-year true love, is how we were describing it, is more important to her at this time. And so, he's announcing this to the C-suite executives. And there was one that was a temporary chief revenue officer. His name was Tyler Norton. And I didn't know this. He pulled out his phone as a result of this announcement and texted my now husband, my Mr. Yummy, "Are you still single? There's this woman I think you should meet."
No way.
He did. So his name was Tyler Norton. I told you about that perfect day visualization. Of course, in a perfect day visualization, when you're married, you give yourself a new last name because that's what I guess for all the women who wouldn't do that. But in my old school, I'm taking my husband's name, so I gave myself a new last name. My last name in that perfect day visualization was Norton. So Tyler Norton is the one who introduced us, the name I gave myself in that visualization. So it's almost as if the current you can see little parts of the handprints on things. Like if you just ask yourself, if you're able to project forward into the future you're creating, you get little hints. Now, they're not like, a download necessarily sometimes, but you do get some little hints. And so then that's where you see the serendipities of like, I might, if, some string theory to the future works, I might be able to tap into my future self who's giving me hints about some of this stuff, know? And so anyway, it wasn't until, that was like June, July. I didn't meet Evan until January 6th of 2017. Okay. So I had completed the full year of Mr. Yummy, believing 100% that it had not been successful. Because I had the people.
Wait, it meaning
the Mr. Yummy plan.
So you thought
this is it? Love
failure.
Coming.
Like you thought, game over. Need to play a new game. There is no Mr. Yummy for me.
I did, and where it got really hard. It was September of that year. I had a crazy Catholic obsessed landlord who I sublet an apartment from him in La Jolla. And he had, Virgin Mary on the walls and what have you. It was supposed to be my bachelorette pad, and I had Virgin Mary on all the walls that I took down and hid behind a sofa for the time I sublet.
Virginity is not what we're about, right? Here, right now.
Bachelorette pad, people.
Yeah.
So anyway, but as I was leaving, that somebody said, "I don't know why I'm telling you this. I think you're supposed to go to Medjugorje, and this is a place in Bosnia-Herzegovina where 6 local children saw apparitions of the Virgin Mary and got messages about love and, from her there." And so this guy just was like, "You're supposed to go to Medjugorje." I'm like, "But you're a very odd man, Dan." But okay, I put your Mary back on the wall. So anyway, in this, one of my trips was to Croatia. This was about September timeline. And I was just like, well, I'm, spitting distance from Medjugorje. I'm going. So I went to Medjugorje, not knowing what to expect. I was with a girlfriend of mine. And we're just doing a road trip, and it's going through Bosnia and Herzegovina, the border. People there are serious and kind of a little scary. It's not like, yay, road trip. They're like, what is your business?
Yeah.
You're crossing the border. And I'm like, oh, okay.
I am looking for love. I am looking for romance.
I know. Well, but hey, right.
That will transcend the ages.
That's exactly right. So it was a serious tenor. But then we got to the parking lot of this Catholic pilgrimage site, and I'd read a little bit about it. And I was already feeling tender because, I was 75% through the plan that I gave myself, and really nothing was panning out. And I was really vulnerable, like, oh, now I'm going to have to tell everyone, yeah, I'm still single. I guess dreams work for other people, but not me. Yeah. I mean, also, I didn't want to scoop up someone in the funnel just to prove that my dream had worked either. That would be totally shortchanging myself just to look good to other people.
Right.
But it was really like my heart was so wounded. I'm like, maybe I really don't get to be loved. So I drove into the parking lot, and when sometimes people say you were touched, like spirit was there, like you get a visitation from spirit. And I totally did. And I just started to cry. Like it was, I feel that when I go to St. Mark's Basilica in Rome too, there's something very spiritual there, because there's millions of Catholic pilgrims that go to Medjugorje with things in their heart too. So you can kind of almost pick up the center signature from that sometimes, I think, in these holy places. And I just started to cry because I was face to face with the belief that maybe I don't get to be loved. And that's hard thing to think, ridiculous when you think about it. I mean, but it's real with my track record of being married and divorced and having a fiance, and just I hadn't been lucky in love in my own narrative. And as if he was sitting right where you are, my favorite grandfather, who looked at me with the biggest, bluest eyes of love of anyone in my life, came and said, whispered in my ear, "Don't worry, honey, we haven't forgotten about you." And so then, it's like, it was just one of those most spiritual things. And I'm just like, that was so bizarre. I've never had that kind of spiritual visitation before. So then it was 3 months later, and it was like December when I got a Facebook message from Evan, like, "Oh, Tyler says we should meet." I'm like, "He does? Oh, who are you?" And he's like, "Well, this is his friend. I lived on the same street with him for 10 years in, in Utah, and, he's my pal, and what are you up to?" And so then in January I met him, and we went to First Friday in Phoenix, and we had just a magical time. And I didn't want to rush it. I wasn't going to rush it. We took our time dating each other and what have you, but that was a very special first date. And, that dream just like there it was.
Yeah.
But to be careful not to want to say like, look, my dream's working out, because that's not the spirit of it either.
Right.
Not to like convince everybody that, oh, no, I'm on this guy. See, it worked. It's more the real honest, like, look what I came up against. What was holding you back from love? Some core belief that I'm not lovable.
Yeah.
And all of us have some version of that somewhere. Some teacher, some parent, somewhere we're worried that we're not lovable. Oh my gosh, the vulnerability to dream, to do what you're doing on the daily basis. If you got little whispers in your head that you're not lovable, then you get a hater or two online.
Yeah.
See, they're right.
Yeah.
Like you got to get so right and in love with yourself. You got to get so in love with yourself. And even still, I've been together now 7 years. And we sometimes have our little, frictions like people do in relationship. But what happens every time we have friction? I look at how am I not loving me? It's not about him. It's where am I unhealed? Where am I wounded still? Where am I, where do I have friction that I'm creating it with him? So it's interesting, the more vulnerable you become, the bigger you dream, and the parts that are hardest in your livelihood or your career or your, what you do for a living, in your loving area, in a parenting area, in the giving back or charitable areas, when your heart and soul is there, some stuff starts to move. And I think beautiful things start to unfold, So anyway, obviously I'm a big fan of dreaming. That was a big dream, but I parlay that into other types of manifesting and dreaming, because I think, like you were talking about, how do you keep the faith? Is the success is intermittent, or something feels big, but then something, feels like it's dropping back. My marriage is going well, but then we're in a big fight. Is it really right? Am I wrong?
Right.
Like, did I just, but then I like think about my wedding day and I'm like, no, like you're reminiscing about your leaders behind you and the serendipity of that apartment. If you live in LA was forced, it sure didn't feel that way. Right?
Sure.
If me walking down the beach to marry Mr. Emmy was forced, that was not how it felt that day. And so, like, in the keeping of the belief, I have to go to those pivotal moments. Sitting in the parking lot in Medjugorje with my grandfather telling me, honey, don't worry, hang on a little bit more. We have not forgotten about you.
Yeah.
Because I felt like, is there anyone up there that even cares about I dream to be loved? It's that lonely feeling.
Yeah.
I can feel it now, even reminiscing about it.
Oh, yeah.
So real.
Oh, I have that all the time. Just like, what am I doing? I'll have sort of peripheral moments, that, I used to be very religious, and then I moved on from that religion. And so it sort of leaves a lot of deconstruction and a lot of, well, what is true and what do I believe in? Who is God and what is God? Because I don't think it's what I was trained that he or she was.
Yeah, right.
And so I deal with that all the time. And it's funny, I had a similar spiritual visitation. Did I ever tell you this?
No, I have not heard about this.
So this would have been maybe 2-3 years ago. And this was still when I was in LA. And I'm in my room and I'm meditating, and I got some candles going and some meditation music. I'm just trying on anything.
Yeah.
And I'm able to catch this state of euphoria where I feel that sort of elevated, joyful, I've left Earth for a little bit here, so I know what's going on. It's like, I'm not drinking, I'm not on drugs, I'm not doing anything. I'm just meditating, focusing, breathing, and just allowing myself to be wrapped up into that. And in that experience, I feel the presence of my mother's oldest brother, my Uncle Jeff, who, ironically enough, was a huge atheist.
Interesting. Okay,
or at least agnostic, right?
Yeah.
Very intellectual, not a religious guy, not a spiritual guy at all. And he and I didn't even really have that close of a relationship. I mean, I would go years and years and years without seeing him or talking to him. And I can't even remember the last time I'd seen him alive in person. And he had passed away maybe 2017 or so. And all of a sudden, I feel him talking to me in the room, and I'm having a conversation with him. I'm going, Uncle Jeff, like that would be the last person who I would be involved in any sort of spiritual epiphany, especially given his more agnostic, intellectual, whatever. And so I had to have but I'm talking to him or whatever I think is him. And he pretty much just said, hey, FYI, I've been assigned as your guardian angel on this side of things. And to help you specifically your entertainment dreams.
No way.
And this is what he says to me. And he goes, and so that this is true, I have a surprise for you. Do you want to know what it is, or do you want to be surprised? And I'm in a state of joy and euphoria, so of course I want to be surprised. I don't have this. No, tell me. And he goes, okay. The next morning, I had been with this new agent in LA for about a year. So in LA, I don't want to go too much detail. You have a commercial agent, a theatrical agent. Commercial is commercials, TV commercials, ads, or whatever. Theatrical is everything TV and movies. Everybody wants the TV and movies. Usually when you're up and coming, you settle for the commercials to make some money, right? And I'd gotten plenty of commercial auditions. I had not gotten one theatrical audition with this new agent. The next morning, this agent emails me an audition, and it's for General Hospital. So I had been in LA maybe 4 or 5 years by this time, maybe a little longer. And I had never had an audition for any like bona fide TV or movie ever. Indie films and student films, like all of that stuff, but never like, this is an actual TV show, established, major brand, General Hospital, one of the longest running soap operas ever. The role was actually perfect for me. And I get this audition the next morning after having this epiphany with my Uncle Jeff. So that was still almost 3 years ago now. And through all of the shit that I've been through, all of the discouragement, the relationship that about, even this recent experience I had with this comedy troupe that I had a long relationship with, that just completely took my knees out, by the way that they treated me. And I still just have to go like, man, I hope that there is something on the other side that is taking note, you know what I mean? And whatever is orchestrating, whatever they're allowed to do, or whatever is appropriate with whatever eternal laws, I don't even begin to try to understand it, but I still have to sometimes just rely and be like, man, I hope my Uncle Jeff is still up there, because like I'm still going for this. My dream has not really changed. My focus has changed, whereas before I thought that being on a sitcom meant I should try to pursue acting directly. And constantly I get sort of led towards pursue stand-up. Pursue stand-up. And stand-up is so hard for me. Does not come naturally to me, does not come easy to me. It's so hard for me to write. It's so hard for me to feel confident. It's like, I love improvising.
You're great. I mean, you're a genius.
I love improvising, and I love acting because it's like, you tell me what to say.
That's right. And I say it.
And then, or I get to make up what to say.
But maybe because of your head stuff, stand-up is the gateway for that to go away.
Sure.
For the other stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like, for you to be a match for your big role, maybe this is exactly what needs to happen. Like maybe the heart is what's required in some interesting way.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's been very clear. You got your myriad of fans.
Yeah, it was just buzzing, so I just thought I would unbuzz it. It was only like, oh, it was Mr. Yummy.
It was Mr. Yummy.
I would have.
Oh, right.
Sometimes he says funny things when I pick up the phone.
Wow, I got priority over Mr. Yummy.
Yeah, yes. And that is absolutely not, only because we're filming, but in general, we're each other's number one after ourselves. That's it. God, ourselves, and each other.
Oh, I love that.
In that order, So, yeah. But now Paul Green for the moment. So, other things can creep in, but,
Yeah.
Only because we're filming. We're live. So that's so interesting.
Yeah. So
interesting.
That was my experience. And, and I still just wonder, what is that going to look like? Because it's pretty grandiose, and I have to constantly check that.
Words. It's pretty grandiose, is it? In the universe, you getting on a sitcom and, you ordering a glass of water are the same level of effort. They don't care. It's not grandiose. Stop saying that.
Oh my gosh.
Please, I adore you.
I am getting dream coached again by someone who nobody does it better. No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
That have to come together. That might be a lighter way we can say,
Right.
there are some things that really have to come together.
Yeah.
There's some forces that needs to come together. So, like, it's like I can't just, dial up I would like a roll and then like put a check mark and then send it to the person. And, it's a little bit more to it than that, but it's not grandiose. It's not for you.
Yeah.
Not for you.
So, may I articulate how the dream looks now?
Yeah.
Because I do love stand-up and I do love performing.
Yeah.
I know love is that nobody knows who I am.
Right.
Relative.
Right up. Yeah.
Trying to sell tickets, and like I've really learned that actually is
A big deal.
the industry that I'm in.
Stand up.
In stand-up is if you're not a draw, if people do not go, oh, this comic is in this venue in my town, I'm now going to spend $50 and get a babysitter and then go spend another 30 on drinks or whatever it is to go see them. The ceiling is so low in terms of any sort of success that you can have. And I'm doing well in that lower ceiling success. Like people will book me, I'm doing casinos, there's clubs here who know me, and that's all great. And I love that. And I'm grateful for it. But again, the ceiling is,
Yeah.
I'm already bumping my head on, and I know people who have been doing it longer than me who are still in that grind, and it's just not really a viable way, and it's not actually what my dream really is,
Right. Right.
So when I think about that, it's having enough visibility,
Yeah.
to where I can walk into any venue or schedule a show at any venue in any, small, medium, major market and actually be able to sell tickets to the thing. And then also to have that visibility, and whether it's whatever the chicken and the egg is, be able to have that visibility to then also be the guy on that show. Or if it's, oh, he's that guy in that show and he does stand up in my town, I want to see him. Matter of fact, this is an interesting, I'll tell you this story. And then how are you doing on time? Because again, we could go tangents for a while, and there was another thread I wanted to pull off.
I'm good, and I'm sure you're going to do a little editing. Is that...
Oh, no.
Okay,
Keep this on.
throw that.
Look at this on blocker. And I already know because actually my phone actually died, which means the audio track is now just going to come off the camera.
Okay.
So I will splice that together.
Okay.
So the first half will be really clean audio.
Okay.
The second half will be good audio.
Okay. Hey, we're happy with good.
Let
me grab some water.
Go for it. That is your complimentary beverage, courtesy of Banner Health. Just kidding. They are not sponsors of mine. Hey, do you want to be sponsors of mine, Banner Health Desert Medical Center? Probably need to have a lot more viewership before that. Okay. So this was like 3 years ago. I had my first little mini casino tour. I was really excited because I booked something and I was the headliner.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And I got to travel up to Oregon and Washington. There was 6 different venues. So while I'm up in Oregon, I just go, oh, I'm going to be near Portland. I wonder what comedy clubs are in Portland and who's performing. So I pull it up, and there was 2 major comedy clubs that I feel bad I don't remember the names of them. I looked at one comedy club. I saw who the headliner was. Didn't know who they were. Looked at the second club, and there was this headliner who was an actor in this show that I knew.
Okay.
Called Billions. And I had Paul Giamatti and Damian Lewis, is that his name? Shoot, I can't remember his name. And this actor, he was probably 10th on the casting sheet. He was
not a big profit.
He would probably never have, be part of the A story or the B story. Maybe every once in a while he would, have a few lines as part of the C story, but he was in enough of the episodes that I totally recognized him.
Totally.
He's that guy on that show. And what did I do? I went and bought a ticket to see him. I showed up to the show. The venue was sold out. One pretty large venue, maybe a 250-seater. I didn't even know he did stand up. And then I see him, and he was so funny, and he did great. And I got to get my picture with him afterwards. And I'm going, isn't that interesting that because he was that guy in that show, and I'm I could totally be the guy in that show.
Right.
Right.
I think you use your brain to try to figure out how it's going to happen a little bit too much.
Probably.
And, the universe does its work. You just got to do yours. Be funny, have lots of content, get better at your craft, enjoy the crap out of it, and let the universe figure out how the rest is going to happen.
Okay.
Okay.
That's a deal.
And then when you have your doubts, which we all do, find your believing eyes. Or a new thing is go back to your believing moments.
Yeah.
Because just reconnecting with that story from Medjugorje or from the story of you pursuing your dream, I feel even more connected to your dream. I feel even more connected to Mr. Yummy.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I mean, we both own businesses, and we have a lot that goes on. So there's friction sometimes. 7 years in, that's when you're really seeing the real actual person. And so then there are moments where you're just like, this was when I was all worked up with it. But then I go back to that day walking across the beach to meet him, the Mr. Yummy plan, and that he was the prize at the end. I mean, true, in my heart, that's what I feel. Your uncle, in the room. I mean, that's not for nothing,
Right.
And right, but it is like the current situation where it doesn't feel like the action is happening according to your script.
Right.
That's the hardest.
Sure.
Because if you're a little bit type A at all, if you're a little bit achiever or successful at all, if you're a little intellectual at all, you feel like I got to be a prognosticator and I got to look good, knowing how it goes. The need to release from that is so critical for dreaming, because if you're doing that part of the universe's work, it can't do, you're actually turning a blind eye to all the ways that it might actually be happening because you're not expecting it from whence it's coming.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so there's almost a counter intuition to be like kind of a, quote unquote, societal successful person counts on you being hyper vigilant and knowing all the, angles and knowing all the risks and having a really clear strategy and, narrowing down how the revenue number is going to be achieved or how the costs are going to be reduced. Whereas the universe just works in these funny, maximum efficient ways. You know why I had to wait till 45? That was the efficient way for me and Evan for him to be available, me to be available, for us to be an energetic match at that time.
Yeah.
Who else would have known that? For me, I'm like, no, at 30, that was when I wanted a Mr. Yummy.
Yeah.
I had some work to do.
Yeah.
I had infusion sock to go to. I had some dreaming to do. I had some people's dreams to unleash, because when I am unleashing someone else's dream by at least helping, I'm voting for my own.
Yeah.
So it happens like that.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the main reasons I started this podcast.
Yeah.
And most it's just me talking every day. Like, this is what I'm going through. And it seems so counterintuitive because all I've ever heard is like, when you have a dream, don't tell anybody, just tell a few people, don't let people know what you're up to, don't tell people your big dreams, just go accomplish it and whatever. And I feel sometimes I'm just going like, am I being too transparent? Am I like, talking about the ups and downs too much? But it's like, this is actually what I feel called to do. Like, it's the whole, I'm going to do it my way. It's like, no, I'm going to check in every single day and check in with people and talk about dreams and talk about the process and be totally transparent as much as my ego will allow about, what's going on and what I'm experiencing and the ups and downs, and I'm only doing it just in case anybody else out there has a dream.
If you're very kidding me, these are women, us, we talk all the time. You and I have kind of, we're not a female relationship, but we talk like two really good, girlfriends, like Linda Richmond.
I don't know how I feel about. I feel like you're complimenting me. Paul, you're like a girlfriend to me.
Meeting. We're not just talking about the weather. Hey, dude. Hey, bro.
Yeah.
Hey, bro.
Dude. Yeah.
Okay, like a brother, sister, then even, but a brother who actually has emotional intelligence. No offense for people who don't have. I don't want to sound judgy. I'm just saying there's a certain level of natural vulnerability that women have with each other that those conversations we're having all the time. So I think it feels a lot more vulnerable to someone, especially who has a Y chromosome. This kind of vulnerability is not seen as like, well, I am strong. I had it all figured out from the beginning. Yeah.
I am stoic and I am not affected emotionally by all things that happen to me.
That's right. Yeah, it was all, I had it all figured out and I never sweat a single drop.
Yes.
So that's BS as far as I can see. And I am very transparent about my own ups and downs in any relationship that I have, which people say is just shockingly refreshing.
Right.
Because you know what? I always get my outcome. I mean, I'm not surprised or anything, but I have a track record of achieving, things. And, some things I take longer. But my girlfriend and I, one of my best friends, I'm 52. I've known her for 45 years now. Crazy, right? I met her at 7 years old. I met her in day camp. Her name's April, and she is the bomb diggity. I mean, she and my sister, who I've known my whole life, because I'm the younger sister. Those are some amazing women. But April and I have been musing exactly about what keeps you in dream mode, connected dream mode, and what takes you out of it. So this whole thing about the roller coaster, because she and I recognize when we're on the roller coaster and on the downside of the roller coaster, we start doing things that are not actually aligned to our declared things we want to do. Like, if we want to be active and healthy, well, then when we're in the, in this one phase of the down, like, when we're up here, it's like, oh my gosh, I put in an extra 30 minutes at the gym. It was so awesome. Oh my gosh, I went to Sprouts and I made a, legume extravaganza, right? When you're in this energy, all those things for like, I want to be active and fit at 50 start to happen. But then when you're down here, like, oh, burger sounds good.
Right.
So we've been really asking ourselves, what's the difference? And I'm a spiritual director. So, I don't do therapy anymore. I'm a coach anymore. I'm a spiritual director who asks where God, him or her, whatever is showing up in your life. And I was talking to him, and he was talking about our autonomic nervous system, and when we're up in connection and safety, down to fight or flight, and then into like just basically play dead, right? So that's the 3 places. It's very, he gave me a book to read about it. I knew about it a little bit, like I know about fight or flight. I didn't know about it, like I read it. Well, when we're in connection and safety, you're not actually physically even narrowed, right? Fight or flight, your vision narrows to the 2 or 3 things that you could actually do in that moment, because you are now, your survival is threatened. And so in fight or flight, your survival is like, that's how your nervous system is reacting. Like, I might die here. I might die here.
Right.
So then you're going to fight or you're going to flee. And then that might shut down into like, I'm just going to numb and just like turn into a blob because I'm so discouraged. And April and I were talking today on the phone. And we said, gosh, can I ask myself the question, am I really going to die?
Right.
Like whenever I'm not in safety and connection, whatever triggered it.
Right.
I know a disappointment with a set of colleagues. For me, sometimes homeowners I'm serving in my business, or, just a random person in my condo, I live in a condo. I've got some interesting characters there, might take you out for a hot second. And the taking out takes me out. I'm not in connection. I'm not at peace. Means something has triggered my fight or flight response. So something has fooled me into thinking this is a fight for survival. Like, unless I'm physically about to, like, if it's not physical, it can't possibly be life and death.
Right. Unless we're actually at war and we're actually getting bombed.
Right. And unless my physical person is somehow in jeopardy,
right.
It is not logical. I am not in fight or flight. I am not. My nervous system says I am. And then my vision starts to narrow. And then you know what else narrows is possibility. My set of possible actions to take narrows. So she and I have not gotten to any conclusions. We're like, how do we stay in safety connection? How do we, my spiritual director says, fill up that tank so there's extra there. So, if a spouse is doing that thing that grates on your nerves, you have that spare. Or for a parent, your kid's doing that thing that will pull you into, oh my gosh, this kid is going to turn into a holy terror, and I'm going to be shamed in all of the town for having a horrible child who makes no money, has no family, and dies alone in a ditch. That's the kind of fight or flight, that you come up against, right? So, like, can we just stop when we're getting out of safety and connection and we're starting to get triggered by a fight or flight response and say, I'm actually not in any physical jeopardy. So this triggering is made up. Now, it may still feel real, but at least I could open a window of choice.
Right.
Because staying in connection, staying in those moments that invited your uncle in, that invited my grandpa in, staying in, I'm going on all these trips because I say so. I'm moving to LA because I say so. But when you're like, oh, the statistics are against you. Well, all half of marriages end in divorce. So, women are from different planets. All of the common thinking out there, what has it give up before you even started? They're going to say the statistics don't favor you. So just, eat more food, drink more wine, watch more TV, and just sit there and subsist as the failure that you can admit that you are going to be because the odds are against you. This is it. But don't be too broke, don't be too fat, and don't be too single. Like what are just, that's the ultimate fight or flight, is just like, I'm just kind of stuck in the, I'm fleeing from my dreams. I fled from my dreams. So now I get up and I just have this rote, life where I'm not really in alignment with my dreams. Then gosh darn it, you open up Pandora's box and start to become a dreamer. Wasn't life a little bit less noisy when you didn't even think it was possible for you to be? on a sitcom.
Yeah.
Or you're just paying my bills,
Yep.
having to rent,
Show up, have a boss, know where I'm supposed to be, go home, maybe, go to the gym that night, watch a little bit, wake up, do it the next day. No real risk,
right?
no risk of failure, really.
And no exposure,
No exposure. Nobody would really know who I am, and I would really have to be vulnerable, and
right.
And also not really have to see how good I could really be.
Because you have to admit that you might not hear it way better in your head.
Right.
I'm a way better wife than I actually sometimes best.
Or a way better performer, or way better, or a way worse. You know what I mean?
The thing, I'm a way better businesswoman in my head, but now is with my own entrepreneurial business, I'm like, oh, that didn't go so well.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's not about, a job can't be a dream. I mean, I love that there's lots of Infusionsoft was an amazing place to work, and
right.
It was just it wasn't anything wrong with the job that I was in or that you was in. It was that we weren't being honest about the things that we really wanted to pursue.
Right.
So now you still have a job, and you understand its role, and it's it's like, and you're happy to be there because of what it supports in a different way. That dream's hidden, and then you're just doing a job, but you haven't even looked. You haven't even looked at what is actually there for me. Infusionsoft is now a different vehicle when it's supporting your ability to move to LA than it was as just a job.
Yeah.
So everything is neutral. It has the meaning we give it, and it's amazing when you dream that all of your support cast starts to be part of that dream, and you just look at it differently.
Yeah.
You're so grateful to have an apartment to live in LA. Look at all the stuff we take for granted.
Right.
It's just like, it's fine.
Yeah.
So in the wake of a dream, everything comes alive. It becomes more fascinating. It becomes more magic and special, and do it for that reason.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, I think that is a great little coda, if you will, for this. Thank you so much. I love you so much. I'm so grateful for you and everything that you've done for me and for our friendship. You do truly mean the world to me. And thank you for being a dreamer. Thank you for supporting dreams. And, especially, I've talked about this before, how important it is to know who's in your tribe, who actually does have your best interest in mind. And, I've had this experience recently where it was very clear that, oh, no, we don't actually have your best interest in mind. And, and it's so great to have someone like you in my corner. And I feel that. And I hope you feel that in return as well.
It me so much, right? Is it's like you said, is someone who has their own best interests in mind, like really, truly, it doesn't think that someone's going to come spike something for them. Like, really, it's all going to work out for me. And then you can be that for someone else. I do feel that, and I adore you as well. And I feel like, the more we're growing in love with ourselves, it creates a halo. And now there's this overlap, and we can love one another in the celebration of loving ourselves. It really starts there.
Right.
Now, can you even really love if you're not falling in love with yourself?
Yeah.
And so these explorations have drawn us really close. We talk about a lot of vulnerable stuff that you don't talk about, the guy at the front desk at my condo, or your cleaning lady, or whoever it is that, you might be bumping into casually. We've developed a really great friendship out of kind of a funny origin.
A backstory.
Yeah.
So
grateful for you.
So thank you so much for coming.
You're welcome.
On the podcast. Thank you so much for listening to the Paul Green Comedy PaulCast. I love you all so much. I hope you are out there pursuing your dreams, navigating all of the ups and downs, finding joys, having great experiences, and when things get tough, when things get discouraged, that you're able to find those moments of belief, those moments of encouragement, whatever it is within you to keep pursuing, because I can attest the relationships, the experiences that you have, even if what you have set out to accomplish isn't necessarily in front of you right now, even the journey in and of itself is well worth it, and well worth the experience and the growth and all of the things that happen. So I love you all so much. Thank you for listening, and I will talk to you all tomorrow.